Buddha Nama Dhamma Nama Sangha Nama.
The Buddha and his Dhamma. Siddhartha Gautama. How a Bodhisatta became the Buddha. Part 1. From birth to Parivraja. His Kula. 1. Going back to the 6th century BC, northern India did not form a single sovereign state. 2. The country was divided into many states, some large, some small. Of these, some were monarchical and some non-monarchical. 3. The monarchical states were altogether 16 in number. They were known by the name of Anga, Magad, Kashi, Kosal, Vriji, Mal, Chedi, Vatsa, Kuru, Panchala, Matsya, Sorsena, Asmaka, Avanti, Gandhar and Kambhoj. 4. The non-monarchical states were those of the Sakyas of Kapil Vatsu, the Mallas of Pava and Kushinara, the Lichvis of Vaishali, the Vides of Mithila, the Kolyas of Ramgam, the Bulis of Alkapa, the Kalingas of Resputta, the Mauryas of Pipfalvana and the Bhaggas with their capital on Sumsumara hill. 5. The monarchical states were known as Janpada and the non-monarchical as Sangh or Ghana. 6. Not much is known about the nature of the polity of the Sakyas of Kapil Vatsu, whether it was republican or oligarchic. 7. This much, however, is definitely known, that there were many ruling families in the Republic of the Sakyas, and that they ruled in turns. 8. The head of the ruling family was known as Raja. 9. At the time of the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, it was the turn of Suddhodna to be the Raja. 10. The Sakya state was situated in the northeast corner of India. It was an independent state. But at a later stage the king of Kosal had succeeded in establishing his paramountcy over it. 11. The result of this paramountcy was that the Sakya state could not exercise certain sovereign powers without the sanction of the king of Kosal. 12. Of the kingdoms then in existence, Kosala was a powerful kingdom. So was the kingdom of Magad. Pasnedi, king of Kosal, and Bimbisara, king of Magad, were the contemporaries of Siddhartha Gautama. His ancestry. 1. The capital of the Sakyas was the city called Kapilavatsu, perhaps after the name of the great rationalist Kapila. 2. There lived in Kapilvastu a Sakya by name Jayasena. Sinhu was his son. Sinhu was married to Kachkana. Sinhu had 5 sons: Suddhodna, Dhotodana, Sakkorna, Suklodana and Amitodana. Besides 5 sons, Sinhu had 2 daughters, Amita and Pamita. 3. The Gotra of the family was Aditya. 4. Suddhodna was married to Mahamaya. Her father's name was Anjana and mother's Sulakshana. Anjana was a Kolya and was residing in the village called Devdaha. 5. Suddhodna was a man of great military prowess. When Suddhodna had shown his martial powers, he was allowed to take a second wife, and he chose Mahaprajpati. She was the elder sister of Mahamaya. 6. Suddhodna was a wealthy person. The lands he held were very extensive and the retinue under him was very large. He employed, it is said, 1,000 plows to till the land he owned. 7. He lived quite a luxurious life and had many palaces. His birth. 1. To Suddhodna was born Siddhartha Gautama, and this was the manner of Gautama's birth. 2. It was a custom among the Sakyas to observe an annual midsummer festival which fell in the month of Ashad. It was celebrated by all the Sakyas throughout the state and also by the members of the ruling family. 3. It was the usual practice to celebrate the festival for 7 days. 4. On one occasion, Mahamaya decided to observe the festival with gaiety, with splendor, with flowers, with perfume, but without drinking intoxicants. 5. On the 7th day she rose early, bathed in scented water, bestowed a gift of 4 lakhs pieces of money as alms, adorned herself with all precious ornaments, ate choicest food, took upon herself the fast day, vows, and entered the splendidly adorned royal bedchamber to sleep. 6. That night Suddhodana and Mahamaya came together and Mahamaya conceived. Lying on the royal bed, she fell asleep. While asleep, she had a dream. 7. In her dreams, she saw that the 4 world guardians raised her as she was sleeping on her bed and carried her to the tableland of the Himalayas, placed her under a great sal tree and stood on one side. 8. The wives of the 4 world guardians then approached and took her to the lake Mansarovar. 9. They bathed her, robed her in a dress, anointed her with perfumes, and decked her with flowers in a manner fit to meet some divinity. 10. Then a bodhisatta, by name Sumedha, appeared before her saying, I have decided to take my last and final birth on this earth. Will you consent to be my mother? She said yes, with great pleasure. At this moment Mahamaya awoke. 11. Next morning Mahamaya told her dream to Suddhodana. Not knowing how to interpret the dream, Suddhodana summoned 8 Brahmins who were most famous in divination. 12. Deva Rama, Dhagga, Lakhana, Manti, Yan, Suyama, Subhoga and Sudatta and prepared for them a befitting reception. 13. He caused the ground to be strewn with festive flowers and prepared high seats for them. 14. He filled the bowls of the Brahmins with gold and silver and fed them on cooked ghee, honey, sugar and excellent rice and milk. He also gave them other gifts such as new clothes and tawny cows. 15. When the Brahmins were propitiated, Suddhodana related to them the dream Mahamaya had and said, Tell me what it means. 16. The Brahmans said, Be not anxious. You will have a son, and if he leads a householder's life, he will become a universal monarch, and if he leaves his home and goes forth into a homeless state and becomes a sannyasi, he will become a Buddha, a dispeller of illusions in the world. 17. Bearing the Bodhisatta in her womb like oil in a vessel for 10 lunar months, Mahamaya, as her time of delivery was coming nearer, desired to go to her parents' home for delivery. Addressing her husband, she said, I wish to go to Devdaha, the city of my father. 18. Thou knowest that thy wishes will be done, replied Suddhodana. Having seated her in a golden palanquin borne by couriers, he sent her forth with a great retinue to her father's house. 19. Mahamaya, on her way to Devdaha, had to pass through a pleasure grove of sal trees and other trees, flowering and non-flowering. It was known as the Lumbini Grove. 20. As the palanquin was passing through it, the whole Lumbini Grove seemed like the heavenly Sitalta Grove or like a banqueting pavilion adorned for a mighty king. 21. From the roots to the tips of the branches the trees were loaded with fruits, flowers and numberless bees of the fine colors, uttering curious sounds, and flocks of various kinds of birds, singing sweet melodies. 22. Witnessing the scene, there arose a desire in the heart of Mahamaya for halting and sporting therein for a while. Accordingly she told the couriers to take her in the sal grove and wait there. 23. Mahamaya alighted from her palanquin and walked up to the foot of a royal sal tree. A pleasant wind, not too strong, was blowing and the boughs of the trees were heaving up and down, and Mahamaya felt like catching one of them. 24. Luckily one of the boughs heaved down sufficiently low to enable her to catch it. So she rose on her toes and caught the bough. Immediately, she was lifted up by its upward movement and being shaken, she felt the pangs of childbirth. While holding the branch of the sal tree she was delivered of a son in a standing position. 25. The child was born in the year 563 BC on the Vaishakha Purnima day. 26. Suddhodana and Mahamaya were married for a long time, but they had no issue. Ultimately, when a son was born to them, his birth was celebrated with great rejoicing, with great pomp and ceremony by Suddhodana and his family, and also by the Sakyas. 27. At the time of the birth of the child, it was the turn of Suddhodana to be the ruler of Kapilavatsu, and as such was in the enjoyment of the title of Raja. Naturally, the boy was called Prince. 4. Visit by Asita. 1. At the moment when the child was born, there dwelt on the Himalayas a great sage named Asita. 2. Asita heard that the gods over the space of the sky were shouting the word Buddha and making it resound. He beheld them waving their garments and coursing hither and thither in delight. He thought, what if I were to go and find out the land in which he was born? 3. Surveying with his divine eyes the whole of the Jambudvipa, Asita saw that a boy was born in the house of Suddhodana, shining with all brilliance, and that it was over his birth that the gods were excited. 4. So the great sage Asita with his nephew Nardatta rose up and came to the abode of Raja Suddhodana and stood at the door of his palace. 5. Now Asita, the sage, saw that at the door of Suddhodana's palace many 100,000 beings had assembled. So he approached the doorkeeper and said, Go, man, inform the Raja that a sage is standing at the door. 6. Then the doorkeeper approached Suddhodana and with clasped hands said, Know, O Raja, that an aged sage, old and advanced in years, stands at the door and says that he desires to see you. 7. The king prepared a seat for Asita and said to the doorkeeper, Let the sage enter. So coming out of the palace, the doorkeeper said to Asita, Please go in. 8. Now Asita approached King Suddhodana and, standing in front of him, said, Victory, victory, O Raja, may you live long and rule thy kingdom righteously. 9. Then Suddhodana in reverence to Asita fell at his feet and offered him the seat, and seeing him seated in comfort, Suddhodana said, I do not remember to have seen thee before this, O sage. With what purpose has thou come hither? What is the cause? 10. Thereupon Asita said to Suddhodana, A son is born to thee, O Raja. Desiring to see him, have I come. 11. Suddhodana said, The boy is asleep, O sage. Will you wait for a while? The sage said, Not long, O king. Do such great beings sleep? Such good beings are by nature wakeful. 12. Then did the child out of compassion for Asita, the great sage, make a sign of awaking. 13. Seeing that the child had become awake, Suddhodana took the boy firmly in both hands and brought him into the presence of the sage. 14. Asita, observing the child, beheld that it was endowed with the 32 marks of a great man and adorned with the 80 minor marks. His body surpassing that of Sakra, Brahma, and his aura surpassing them 100,000-fold, breathed forth this solemn utterance, Marvelous! Verily, is this person that has appeared in the world, and rising from his seat clasped his hands, fell at his feet, made a rightways circuit round and, taking the child in his own hand, stood in contemplation. 15. Asita knew the old well-known prophecy that anyone endowed with the 32 marks of a great man, as Gautama was, has 2 careers open to him, and no third. If he becomes a householder, he will become a universal monarch. But if he goes forth from the home to a homeless life, he will become a fully enlightened Buddha. 16. Asita was sure that the child would not remain a householder. 17. And looking at the child he wept, and shedding tears, sighed deeply. 18. Suddhodana beheld Asita shedding tears, and sighing deeply. 19. Beholding him thus weeping, the hair of his body rose, and in distress Suddhodana said to Asita, Why, O sage, dost thou weep and shed tears, and sigh so deeply? Surely, There is no misfortune in store for the child. 20. At this Asita said to the Raja, O king, I weep not for the sake of the child. There will be no misfortune for him, but I weep for myself. 21. And why? Asked Suddhodna. Asita replied, I am old, aged, advanced in years, and this boy will without doubt become a Buddha and attain supreme and complete enlightenment, and having done so, will turn the supreme wheel of the doctrine that has not been turned before him by any other being in the world, for the weal and happiness of the world will he teach his doctrine. 22. The religious life, the doctrine that he will proclaim will be good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, complete in the letter and the spirit, whole and pure. 23. Just as an Odumbara flower at some time and place arises in the world, even so at some time and place, after countless cycles, revered Buddha arise in the world. So also, O Raja, this boy will without doubt obtain supreme, complete enlightenment, and having done so will take countless beings across the ocean of sorrow and misery to a state of happiness. 24. But I shall not see that Buddha. Hence, O Raja, I weep, and in sadness I sigh deeply, for I shall not be able to reverence him. 25. The king thereafter offered to the great sage Asita and Nardatta, his nephew, suitable food, and having given him robes made a rightways circuit round him. 26. Thereupon Asita said to Nardatta, his nephew, When thou shalt hear, Nardatta, that the child has become a Buddha, then go and take refuge in his teachings. This shall be for thy weal and welfare and happiness. So saying, Asita took leave of the Raja and departed for his hermitage. 5. Death to Mahamaya. 1. On the 5th day, the ceremony of name-giving took place. The name chosen for the child was Siddharth. His clan name was Gautama. Popularly, therefore, he came to be called Siddharth Gautama. 2. In the midst of rejoicing over the birth and the naming of the child, Mahamaya suddenly fell ill, and her illness became very serious. 3. Realizing that her end was near, she called Suddhodna and Prajapati to her bedside and said, I am sure that the prophecy made by Asita about my son will come true. My regret is that I will not live to see it fulfilled. 4. My child will soon be a motherless child, but I am not worried in the least as to whether after me my child will be carefully nursed, properly looked after, and brought up in a manner befitting his future. 5. To you, Prajapati, I entrust my child. I have no doubt that you will be to him more than his mother. 6. Now do not be sorry. Permit me to die. God's call has come and his messengers are waiting to take me. So saying, Mahamaya breathed her last. Both Suddhodna and Prajapati were greatly grieved and wept bitterly. 7. Siddharth was only 7 days old when his mother died. 8. Siddharth had a younger brother by name Nanda. He was the son of Suddhodna, born to Mahaprajapati. 9. He had also several cousins, Mahanama and Anuruddha, sons of his uncle Suklodhan, Ananda, son of his uncle Amitodhan, and Devdutt, son of his aunt Amita. Mahanama was older than Siddharth and Ananda was younger. 10. Siddharth grew up in their company.